It started like any other evening. I was scrolling through Instagram, half paying attention to the shows in the background, my phone glued to my hand. I had just gotten home from a long shift at work and was feeling grateful for the quiet. My boyfriend Luke had been texting me all day, and I was looking forward to seeing him later. It had been a tough week. We'd both been busy, and I missed him more than I'd admitted. Then my phone buzzed again, and this time I saw his name flash across the screen. I smiled, thinking it would be another cute message. Maybe a funny meme to brighten my day. But when I opened the text, my heart dropped into my stomach. There it was, a GIF, and not just any GIF. It was of my sister Amanda, in Luke's bed, laughing, lying back on the pillow, a blanket haphazardly thrown over her. I stared at it, my mind racing. The first thought I had was that it had to be a mistake. Maybe it wasn't what I thought, but as the seconds ticked by, the truth started to settle in like a stone. That was her, my sister, in his bed. I felt a sudden, deep sense of panic, confusion, anger, betrayal. All of it hit me at once. I scrolled up the conversation to see if I had somehow misinterpreted it. Luke's message read, "OMG, sorry, that was meant for a friend." He had sent it to me, on purpose. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen. How could this be happening? How could my boyfriend of 2 years, the person I trusted most, send me something like that? My phone buzzed again. It was Luke apologizing profusely, telling me it was an accident, that he didn't mean to send it to me. But I didn't believe him. I stared at the text, my hands shaking. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. It felt like I was caught in some cruel prank, but this was real. This was my sister, and that was Luke's bed. The worst part? I had just spent the entire weekend with both of them. A family barbecue. Laughter. Food. The way we all got along so easily, like we were one big happy family. And now this? I felt the sting of betrayal tear through me. But it wasn't just from Luke. It was from Amanda, too. How long had this been going on? Was this just one mistake? Or had there been more? Things I hadn't noticed? Things I'd missed? I wasn't sure if I wanted answers or if I just wanted to get away from both of them. My mind was racing, but I forced myself to focus. Luke's next text came in. "Please just let me explain. I'll come over now. Please don't be upset. I never meant for this to happen." I wanted to scream at him, to throw my phone against the wall. But instead, I took a deep breath. I had to figure this out. I needed answers. And I needed to face them both. I called Amanda. No answer. I called again, still no answer. It was like everything was slipping through my fingers. I wanted to talk to her, to confront her. But what would I say? How could I even process it? I decided to do what no one should ever have to do. I walked over to Luke's apartment. My heart felt heavy, like it was suffocating me. The drive felt like it took forever. But every second that passed, the more determined I became. When I knocked on his door, it wasn't Luke who opened it. It was Amanda. Her hair was messy. She was still wearing the same clothes from earlier in the day. Her eyes widened when she saw me standing there, and the guilt was evident on her face. She didn't even try to hide it. And that was the moment I knew. The moment I saw her standing in the doorway, the world seemed to freeze. I didn't need to hear the words. Her expression said everything. Amanda stood there, wide-eyed, frozen like a deer caught in headlights. And in that instant, every happy memory I had of her, every laugh we shared, every secret we whispered, started to unravel before my eyes. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I was choking on the realization. The sister I trusted. The boyfriend I loved. I took a step forward, trying to find my voice. "What's going on, Amanda?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My throat was tight, and it felt like I was swallowing glass. I didn't mean for it to happen, okay?" she said, her voice shaking. I could hear the guilt, but there was something else there too. Something I couldn't place. "You didn't mean for what to happen?" I asked, trying to hold it together. I didn't want to cry in front of her, but my emotions were spilling over, and there was no stopping them now. "This? You didn't mean to send that gift to me? Or did you not mean to do this at all?" I motioned to the apartment, to her, standing there. "I don't know, She cut herself off, tears welling in her eyes. "I never meant for you to find out this way. I didn't know how to tell you. I'm so sorry." She said it, but I didn't feel the sincerity in her words. I wanted to believe it, but I couldn't. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. Before I could say anything else, I heard Luke's voice behind me, calling my name. I turned, and there he was, standing in the hallway, looking like he'd been waiting for this moment to happen. My stomach turned at the sight of him, the man I loved, the man I had trusted, the man who had just shattered everything. This wasn't what it looks like, Luke said, stepping closer to me, his eyes pleading. But I wasn't listening. Not anymore, not after seeing Amanda's face, the guilt written all over her. It was as if everything I had known, everything I thought I knew about these two people, had evaporated in a moment of sheer betrayal. You didn't mean for it to look this way? I said, my voice sharp now. You sent me a GIF of my sister in your bed, Luke. How else am I supposed to take it? Luke's face contorted with frustration. I was drunk, okay? I didn't mean to send it to you. It was a mistake, he said, his voice rising. I was messing around with some friends and it was just a joke. But it got sent to you. And I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd freak out. I stepped back, the anger bubbling up inside me like a boiling pot. I couldn't believe him. He was standing there trying to explain himself as if that was going to fix it. How long had he been hiding this? How long had they been seeing each other behind my back? Had they been laughing at me the entire time? You've been sleeping with my sister, I said, my voice trembling, trying to stay composed. And you thought I wouldn't freak out? I turned back to Amanda. She had tears running down her face now, her lips trembling. She didn't say anything, but her silence was louder than any words. She didn't even deny it. I never wanted to hurt you, Amanda finally spoke, her voice cracking. You have to understand, I never meant for it to go this far. It wasn't supposed to be like this, but I don't know how it happened. You don't know how it happened? I repeated, my voice filled with disbelief. Are you serious? You two are in my life every day. You're my family, my boyfriend. How could you think I wouldn't find out? Luke took a step forward, but I backed away. I couldn't stand to be near him. Not now, not after what they had done. I'm sorry, Luke said, his voice softer now, as if that would make it better. But his apology was nothing more than empty words. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for this to happen. I couldn't look at him anymore. I turned to Amanda, my sister, the person who had known everything, who had kept this secret from me. How long? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How long has this been going on? This betrayal? Amanda's eyes filled with tears and she looked away. I don't know how to answer that, she whispered. I wish I could tell you everything, but I can't. I just don't know how it happened. I felt a lump form in my throat and I had to choke back the tears. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the people I trusted most had done this to me. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out of that apartment and never look back. But something held me there. Maybe it was the part of me that wanted closure. Maybe it was the part of me that still loved them both, despite everything. But I couldn't stay. I couldn't pretend everything was okay. I turned back to Luke. I think it's over, I said, my voice steady now. I can't keep doing this. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. And as for you, Amanda, I don't know what you've done, but you've broken me. I walked out, leaving them both standing there. The door closed behind me and I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just the heartbreak. It was the fact that the two people I had trusted most, the people who should have had my back, had turned my world upside down. And now I had to rebuild it. Without them. Without the lies. The days after leaving Luke's apartment felt like a strange kind of limbo. I didn't know what to feel, but I definitely knew what I didn't feel. I didn't feel safe anymore. I didn't feel loved. And worst of all, I didn't feel like I had a family. I stayed at a friend's house for a few nights. Too shaken to go back to my own place. Too angry to even think about facing my mom. I needed space, not from her, but from the suffocating reality of everything I'd just learned. Every second I was awake, all I could hear was Amanda's voice. Her apologies. Her excuses. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw Luke's face. His empty apology. I kept wondering, how could they do this to me? The rage burned, but it wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed to feel some kind of power again. It was 3 days before I finally called my mother. She had left me multiple voicemails asking if I was okay, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to her. Not until I had a plan. When I walked into the house, my mother's face said everything. She could tell I'd been crying. She could see the pain in my eyes. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to hear what she'd say. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want comfort. I wanted revenge. She looked at me, and I could feel the weight of her concern. But all I said was, "I need your help." She didn't ask any questions. She simply nodded, already knowing where I was going with this. I spent the next few days planning. I thought about Luke and Amanda, about how much they thought they could get away with, how they thought I would just forgive them and move on. But I couldn't let them off that easy. Not when they had broken me like this. Not when they had taken everything I trusted and shattered it in one careless, accidental text. I started with Amanda. I knew she had a part-time job at a cafe downtown, and I also knew she had a habit of leaving her phone unattended while she worked. So I waited. I followed her one afternoon, watching as she walked into the cafe. She didn't notice me as I slipped into the back. I waited until I saw her leave her phone on the counter, then I grabbed it. I unlocked it. I scrolled through the messages. I knew I was crossing a line, but at that moment it felt like the only thing left to do. I needed to know. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal really went. What I found was worse than I imagined. There were texts. Between her and Luke. They had been talking for months. Not just talking either. Flirting. Making plans. Laughing about me, about how easy it was to keep me in the dark. They both thought I wouldn't figure it out. But the worst part? There were pictures. Pictures of Luke and Amanda together, lying on the same bed, laughing, kissing. My stomach twisted. But the worst picture of all was one I hadn't seen before, one that Luke had taken. A candid photo of me and Amanda at the family barbecue, smiling and posing for a picture, not knowing that they were already plotting behind my back. They had been laughing at me all along. They had been mocking me in my own home. That was the moment I knew. I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't just let this slide. I had to take back control. I had to show them that they couldn't just get away with breaking my trust. I deleted everything on her phone. Every message. Every photo. But I didn't stop there. I took screenshots of the texts, the ones that proved their betrayal. I saved the photos, every one of them. Then I sent them to Luke. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I let the pictures speak for themselves. I wanted him to see what it felt like to be exposed, to be left with nothing. I wanted to show him the destruction that came from thinking you could play with someone's heart. Later that evening, I sat down and called Amanda. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't crying. I had crossed the line, but it didn't matter. I wasn't the same person I was a week ago. I sent Luke the pictures, I said when she answered the phone. There was a long silence on the other end. What? She asked, her voice cracking. You wanted him. Now you can have him. I hung up the phone before she could say anything more. Luke texted me immediately. His message read, "You've got to be kidding me." But I didn't respond. I didn't need to say anything more. What had once been my life, my relationship, my family, was no longer my concern. Because in the end, they had taken something that couldn't be given back. And now they had to live with it. I stayed away for a while. I didn't go to their apartment. I didn't try to apologize. Because there was nothing left to fix. It took me weeks to fully process everything. And by the time I did, I realized something. I didn't need to get revenge. The truth was more than enough. I had found my strength again. Not through their mistakes, not through their betrayal, but through the realization that I didn't need them. I was enough on my own. It had been weeks since I exposed the truth. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. I didn't need to keep texting Luke. I didn't need any more closure. What had been broken couldn't be fixed. But that was okay. I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't angry. I didn't even feel sorry for them. Because in the end, I realized the most important lesson of all. Letting go is not the same as giving up. I had given them a chance. I had given them trust. And they chose to destroy it. And now it was time to choose myself. It wasn't an easy decision to make. After everything that had happened, I almost convinced myself that I needed revenge to feel whole again. I thought I had to watch them suffer, to ensure they never forgot what they'd done to me. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I didn't want them to have any more power over me. I didn't want to be chained to that pain. So I moved on. Not because I had forgiven them, but because I had finally forgiven myself. The next few months were a slow, healing process. I focused on myself, on my work, on rebuilding my life without the weight of betrayal pulling me down. I joined a yoga class. I took up photography. I reconnected with old friends I'd drifted from. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened. It was about rediscovering the parts of myself I had lost in the chaos. And little by little, I began to feel like myself again. I ran into Luke once, about 6 months after everything fell apart. It wasn't planned. I was grabbing coffee at a cafe when I saw him walk in, his eyes immediately locking onto mine. There was a moment of hesitation, like he was waiting for me to make the first move. But I didn't. I didn't owe him anything. I didn't owe him an apology. I didn't owe him any explanation for why I had chosen to walk away. I simply turned, paid for my coffee, and left. That was all I needed. To know that I could walk away from someone who had betrayed me and never look back. But the real change came when I finally saw Amanda. She reached out to me a few times after everything happened, but I wasn't ready to talk to her. I couldn't, not yet. But one evening, a few months after I had started putting the pieces of my life back together, she showed up at my door. She looked different, tired, broken, but with a sense of accountability that I hadn't seen before. And that's when I realized something important. We were both broken in our own way. We were both hurting, but we were also both human. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fix what I've done, she said, tears in her eyes. I don't know how to make it right. I looked at her as my sister, the person I thought I could never trust again, and I realized something that surprised me. Maybe forgiveness didn't have to come with an apology. Maybe it just had to come with the willingness to move forward. You don't have to fix anything, Amanda, I said quietly, but you have to own it, and you have to show me that you've learned from it. That's the only way we'll both heal. She nodded. I will, I promise. And in that moment, I realized that forgiveness wasn't a gift I had to give them. It was a gift I was giving myself. Because by letting go of the past, I was free. Months later, Luke and I crossed paths again. But it was different. He didn't try to apologize again. He didn't try to make me feel guilty. Instead, he just nodded, a silent acknowledgement that we were both better off apart. I could feel the weight of all the pain, all the hurt, all the years of betrayal leaving me. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean, but it was enough. And that was all I needed. I learned that no one is perfect. I learned that even the people we trust the most can fail us. But I also learned that we have the power to decide how their actions affect us. In the end, we're the ones who get to choose what happens next. We don't have to hold on to the hurt. We don't have to stay stuck in the past. And sometimes letting go is the most powerful thing we can do.